Hey, everybody. Happy day from Vermont. It is snowing. Boy, is it snowing. Not as bad as south of here, where they've had literally feet of snow. We were not that fortunate. I have a little FOMO going on. I'm not going to lie. I like the snow. I'm still a little bit like a kid, hoping school gets canceled or something. I don't know. But beautiful walk today with the dogs in the snow. Nice and cold. So it is definitely winter here in Vermont, holiday season. It's not even right. When is, I guess the first day of winter is on Monday, the 21st. So it's coming. Well, listen, I think you're going to really enjoy the show today. I have a great guest. Kasey Jones is going to be joining us here in a moment. She is really an authority coach, a growth strategist coach. Really, a strong individual. Saw a presentation from her last week, was blown away, absolutely blown away by the things she had to say. So I think you're going to enjoy it. A reminder, as it says here on your screen, to ask questions, to be part of it. Go to your social media comment section, make comments. We'll pick those up and put them on screen as you join us. So with that, you know what it's time for. It is time for the countdown. Well, welcome back, everybody. I see a bunch of you joining us. Welcome. Good to have you here today. Actually, my second live stream of today, and I got to tell you something. First one was kind of a disaster. I got thrown off of some social media because my guest, we had a clip for a showing of him, and sometimes people don't agree with that concept. So glad I'm here this afternoon with you because my guest today, I think, is going to be bringing a really important conversation to the screen. She is, I think, coming to us today from Portland, Oregon. She must be, because who's watching the chickens if she's not? So I want to bring her out right now. We're going to start the conversation with Kasey Jones. Hey, Kasey.
Hi, Al.
How are you?
I am really good. And I am here in Portland. It is shocker. Gray and overcast, not raining though, but I'm sure that will start later today.
What I love about coming to Portland, which I come to Portland a lot during normal times.
You do?
I leave Vermont and it's gray and overcast. I fly across the country so I can land where it's gray and overcast.
I know. I mean, well, it was so funny. So I'm from the East Coast, and
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. So I spent most of my childhood in New York, and then I lived in Miami for 5 years when I was growing up, and then California for 3. And I moved to Portland to go to college 19 years ago.
Okay.
It's crazy. And then I just didn't really leave. And probably the first 10 years that I lived here, my parents would come and visit me in February. And my parents were like, what do you see in this place? Like, why are you here? What is wrong with you? And then finally they came and visited, I think it was in June or July. And it's like summer in Portland is absolutely gorgeous. And my dad was like, oh my God, I get it now. Like, this place is incredible. And now they like love Portland, but it took a long time.
I love Portland. I love Oregon. And, I'm an East Coast guy, very much so, New York City area guy.
Yeah.
When you land in Portland and you drive east, I go out to Pendleton and Baker City and Walla Walla, Washington. The topography just changes so incredibly. The Columbia River Drive, I mean, I'm sorry. That's a gift.
It's spectacular. And when you come from the East Coast, so I literally had never been west of Ohio until we were moving to California when I was 15.
Yeah.
And I was at boarding school at the time, boarding school in Massachusetts, and my parents.
Which one?
Andover.
Oh, sure. Well, I know it well.
Yeah. And I flew by myself to go meet my parents in San Francisco because we were going to look at houses because we were moving. And I was, a depressed 15-year-old. And this is so long ago. This is back when like you could actually take a flight and it would be just empty. And so I was on this massive flight, massive airplane, and there was like no one on it. And I remember it was foggy in San Francisco, big shocker. And they had to fly south of San Francisco and then up along the coast in order to land. And I saw these giant, majestic mountains right next to the ocean. And I just burst into tears. I wept like a baby because it is so dramatic in a way that you just don't experience on the East Coast. No, you get more dramatic weather on the East Coast.
Yeah, absolutely. That is absolutely the case, But you're right about that. I mean, I was actually in Portland. I was out in Bend. I was in Portland, but when was I out there? It was recently. It was like October, I think. And it's the first time I'd taken off, and Mount Rainier was to my left. Yeah. Coming out, it was just beautiful, just gorgeous. Is this a travelogue show? I forget. I didn't. Traveling with Alan Kasey. Yeah. But we can't get off the subject with also talking about the coast, which, we are pushing people. I guess we should put in for a grant from the Traveler Bureau deal, whatever they're in Oregon. But the coast of Oregon, just unbelievable.
It is really, really beautiful. Yeah, I mean, you don't really want to go swimming because it's really, really, really
no, God, no. No. In fact, I know where I was. I was in Astoria. That's where I was. Yeah. I was in Astoria. And of course, I'm in Astoria. I go out to Long Beach, Washington, which the beach is amazing. But I was out there once and guys said, yeah, you don't want to go in that water, and then the fable start of who was in there and who didn't make it through and all that stuff. So,
well, and I don't know if he died, but there was a surfer that was attacked by a great white just off of Cannon Beach. Like
I saw that. Yeah, yeah, that's right. And he didn't die. He was injured, but he didn't die. Yeah. So I saw it in Cannon Beach, another place. I mean, we could go on and on. It's just I love going out there. So, listen, you're here today, and by the way, you mentioned Andover. I lived there, so I was the publisher of the newspaper. Yeah.
God, what a, I haven't been back in a really long time. What a
great spot.
I mean, and for those, that are watching, listening, I don't know if this is still the case. Instead of double yellow stripes down the center of town, it is a red, white, and blue stripes down the center of town.
That's right.
And that, that kind of says it all. It is a very picturesque little town.
Yep. Americana at its best, 100%. I still have some wonderful friends there. I'm only in Vermont, but I mean, it's still a place that we love greatly. So, well, so listen, you're here today, and I always like to talk about this, about Alan Langer, who is our mutual friend and a guy who put together the Play Don't Pause group at the beginning of the COVID pandemic. And he brought so many talented people together. You're one of them. It is such an honor to be hanging out with you guys. And last week you gave a presentation, and I'm telling you, the pacing of it, the subject matter, everything. And I think really was it a fairly new thought you were having? And we'll get into what it was in a moment. But so
it's one that I've been kind of musing on for a bit, and I sort of stopped thinking about it and kind of stopped talking about it. And then it's a client that I'm coaching kind of brought up the conversation and brought up the topic with me. And so he and I got in this really long conversation and sort of like brought it back up for me. And now I really can't stop thinking about it.
So let's talk about what that subject was real quick as a jumping off point. Because right away you mentioned clients. I want to get into what you do.
Yeah.
I'll put your websites up here in a second and talk about, one of the things that you specifically do, which is really what we're doing right now, being a guest. But let's go back to that subject matter from last Friday. What were you talking about? Please tell folks your concept and your thought.
Okay. So we were talking about the difference between personal branding and thought leadership. And so I I'm a coach for entrepreneurs, and a lot of the stuff that I do, we do a lot on kind of growth strategy and business strategy and marketing and all these other things. But a big component is sort of how do you build your authority as an entrepreneur or just a business professional? And I tend to work with people that I lovingly refer to as aggressively humble. Okay, so the idea, you say personal branding to them and they make a disgusted face. Like it just sounds icky. They don't like it. And so when I first really started doing this work and talking about it more, I was like, okay, I need to have a different term.
Right.
I started talking about thought leadership coaching. And still people don't love that term either. There's no term that people really love, and I sometimes talk about, building your authority, things like that. But and I've been thinking about all of this, and this client of mine, he was like, can we talk about what your definition of thought leadership is? And so I started to, we started to talk through what is different. And it's really having that conversation that made me be like, yeah, I get it that none of us really want to be like, have thought leader on our LinkedIn profile because that seems kind of douchey and it's not really, I don't know, anyone who calls themselves a visionary or a guru probably isn't one. But to me, when we're really thinking about what goes into thought leadership, it's a much more substantive, meaningful kind of enterprise. And I think it's something that is, I don't know, more admirable. And it's something you can kind of grab a hold of.
Well, but I think what you were bringing out and what makes a thought leader is someone who actually thinks about what they're doing. I mean, and I'm not being the least bit facetious about what I'm saying, that, when you are a person who leads people, let's just say, talk about a leader. Okay. When you think about leadership and you study leadership, you start to develop a certain amount of thoughtfulness around that. And then you tend to also associate with people who are thinking the same thoughts you are. And I'm talking about our group that comes together.
Yeah.
Birds of a feather start flocking together. You do become a thought leader. And it sounds really douchey. I don't disagree with you at all to say that, but no, I don't. I mean, it's one of my favorite words, but I mean, I'm not going to do a CNN. Have you noticed all the bookshelf shots we've been getting on TV lately?
Yeah, I know.
This whole bookshelf.
I've got a pretty good.
Yeah, I can't read your titles though. So
no, you can't. You can't.
We got a big TV out in the living room. When people are on, we look to see what they're reading. We're like, oh, they're not reading that. But no, I mean, I got a shelf full of leadership books. I'm a leadership, geek. 100%. And I mean, I'm not, I guess I'm one of those people. I could never think of myself as a thought leader, but I certainly have hung out with a lot of people. Point being that, when you are immersing yourself in a subject and you're thinking about it and you're journaling about it and you're writing about it and if you're even speaking about it, because I'm a big believer in the best way to learn any subject is to present it to somebody else.
Without a doubt.
Right? Boom.
Yeah.
And you kind of learn and it all gets in the thick skull here. So I do happen to agree with that.
And that forces you to think about it in a way that you don't otherwise. And that's why it's actually been kind of a fun exercise for me of, because people will be like, I don't like that term. And I sort of started to be like, okay, how do I defend this? Like, how do I make the case that like, I actually think that this is a pretty good term and it's one that we can kind of aspire to. And it's more of a discipline in a way that it is a label.
But as thought leader, where you arrived, is that what you've decided that it is?
Yeah, I think so. Because here's one of the big components of what I think goes into being a thought leader is thought leaders, from my definition, in my humble opinion, IMHO, are people that are really driven by wanting to make an impact. Right. And sometimes it's on the world, but sometimes it's just like on your discipline, right? If you are, really good at one particular thing and you become a thought leader about that thing, it's because you want to drive your industry or your kind of profession forward.
Yeah.
And the people that I tend to work with are ones that when I ask them, they will say that they care more about impact than revenue.
Yeah. Right.
And so
I know. And it's interesting. So I'm going to go back into the personal thing for a second, because what I know about you and what I know about your dad. Your dad came from the same industry that I came from, which I started off
much earlier than you, but
yeah, in the newspaper business, and being a thought leader in that business, and there are probably people out here who are going to listen to this and say, oh, use the douche word again, but I'm going to say it. There were times, I remember in 1999 raising my hand and going, excuse me, what are we going to do about the internet? And the answer literally was, it's just going to be a fad. Don't worry about it.
So the reason why we moved to California, so my father worked for Knight Ridder, which at the time doesn't exist anymore. It's been sold for parts, but at the time it owned 30.
Is that your dad's slogan, sold for parts?
I mean, that's what I say. But so we lived in Miami because their headquarters was in Miami in the Miami Herald building.
Okay.
And we moved to California because they said, look, we're worried about the internet and we want to be surrounded by kind of the .com industry. And so they moved their headquarters from Miami to San Jose. And that's why we moved to California when I was 16.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the thing is, I also remember being a thought leader. There was a thing called the American Press Institute, and I used to go there and you pontificated, literally like it was like the Roman, the Roman column or the Roman, theater of people on different layers around you, and I would talk for 4 or 5 hours about that. And yet I still am not comfortable calling myself a thought leader. So let's go to the other thing you talked about, which was imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So talk about that.
So what's really fascinating to me, so for some reason, I think women are more likely to know that what they're dealing with is imposter syndrome. So for those of you that are watching and don't kind of know, imposter syndrome is that feeling that you get when you kind of feel like you don't deserve the reward or the success that you are experiencing, and that people are going to figure out that you are a fraud and it's all going to come crumbling down.
Mm-hmm.
And what's really interesting to me is, so I'll be talking to an entrepreneur who's saying, hey, I know that I need to kind of build my personal brand. I know I need to get out there more. And I just can never find the time.
Right.
And I start to ask them some questions. And here's the deal about being an entrepreneur. You do lots and lots of things that you don't really have the time for, but you just kind of figure out a way to get it done. Right. And where you're forced to learn how to do things that you've never done before and figure out this problem and solve it and kind of, build a system to solve it. But there's something about this kind of personal brand stuff, this putting yourself out there in kind of a self-promotional way. Yeah. That entrepreneurs who are incredibly productive, incredibly hardworking, incredibly problem solving kind of masters, they can't solve this one. Right. And that's imposter syndrome. I mean, that's fear getting in the way. It's you being afraid that someone is going to look at some post you make about your work and be like, ugh, who does he think he is? Yeah. And I think we often don't recognize that that's what's really getting in our way. It's fear.
Well, I think that's true. And, it's funny. I'm going to throw something up on the screen here real fast. It's just a very quick, as you were talking about this, a very quick reference to what we're talking about. Okay. And this, I have to see, we can look at what the cover of this magazine, it's easier just to do it this way rather than to grab it. This was a Fast Company magazine. I'm going to say it's probably the 1990s, but the brand called You, and it made people so uncomfortable to talk about themselves as a brand, and I remember that. But I think you're onto something here. I think also too, in thought leadership, you're challenging yourself to figure out what you are as well.
That's it.
Yeah.
It's
So
the intention.
we both did the same thing at the same time. Yeah.
Well, and here's the deal, and I say this all the time, like everybody has a personal brand. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't like Jeff Bezos, but he's got a great quote. He says, your personal brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room.
Yeah. Why don't you like Jeff Bezos? Let's get into that for 1 second.
I mean, Amazon is kind of an evil company. They've had a huge impact, some positive, but mostly negative. And as far as billionaires who do the least amount for public good and donate the least, I mean, people will be like, oh, he donated 15 million. And you're like, that's like if I donated like 5 cents, if we're talking about it in terms of total wealth.
All right.
So I don't, and like,
I get it. I get it. I mean, I don't know enough about him, so that's why I had to ask the question.
Yeah.
Now I will dig. So,
but he's like a crazy impressive person. But we all have a personal brand. The key is, are we creating it with intention, or are we just letting it happen?
Well, right. Yeah. And so, if you want to go with the big shots, right? I mean, Bill Gates and Melinda Gates certainly have taken their brand and turned it into, the wellness of humankind, vaccinations, polio, I mean, so I get what you're saying, but then you got schmoes like me, right? Who have a multiple, it's funny. So you can't see this, but this notebook right here, let me get it in the middle. That's me trying to figure out who the hell I am. Okay. Yeah. And what my personal brand is, because I've got to redo my website. And so a website with your own name in it, which by the way, we'll get to the name of your website in 1 second. But when your website is algetler.com, I mean, let's face it, you're kind of over the humble piece. But
Well, no, and you can still be humble, but I also think, our sort of need to be humble, I don't know, is always that good for us, right? Like this complete unwillingness to publicly celebrate when we do amazing things. Like, I think it's kind of dysfunctional, honestly. And this has been a pretty, big and tough year for me in a lot of ways. And one of the biggest ahas I've had is like, I'm a pretty awesome human. And I don't want to feel bad feeling that way.
Yeah. Can I ask why this was a tough year for you?
Yeah. So, all right, let's get into it. So the big thing is just over 6 months ago, I had my 6-month anniversary was last week. I was mauled by a dog.
Oh my God.
So, you can, wait, the camera. So you
Holy
can see.
cow. Wow. And you're a dog person because I heard the dog barking in the background.
Yeah. It was my rescue dog. And he had a really...
Oh my goodness. Wow. Yeah.
And so I spent, I mean, I truly thought that he's going to kill me. If it weren't, I mean, he was a 100-pound dog. If it weren't for the pandemic, I don't know what would have happened, but I managed to get the side door to my house open. I couldn't get him off of me. And I started screaming for help, and my neighbors came and they saved my life. And I spent 3 days in the hospital. I had pretty extensive surgery, and it was, 6 weeks, 2 months of pretty intense recovery. And there is nothing like thinking you're going to die to give you some pretty amazing perspective on what really matters in life and the kind of life you want to lead and the kind of person you want to be.
Wow. Well, first of all, stepping back from that for a second too, because you're a dog person.
I am.
We are in this house, and that's a very difficult thing to have happened, period. And judging by the barking in the background, you haven't lost your trust.
No.
You realize that, it's just a particular dog who came from a particular place because it was a rescue.
And it was very much like a switch was flipped, and he showed aggression to my other dog, who you could still hear barking, and I could sense he was going to go after her.
Right.
So I got her out of the house, and by that point he was just all amped up, and so he went after me instead. And I do feel very lucky. I think I would be much more afraid of dogs at this point if it had been a strange dog. Like if I'd just been walking down the street and some random dog, but it was, I knew his history really well. I know the circumstance. And so it's,
right.
Yeah. So
we never forget. You can never forget.
No.
Domesticated or not, they're animals.
They're animals. Yeah.
And they also come from places where, you knew his background, but we don't truly know their background.
Yes. Yes.
So for that, first of all, I am so sorry that happened to you. Yeah. And I'm so glad you're mending. And 6 months is not a long time ago. So
it's not.
Wow. I had for this time that we've known each other in our group, I had no idea. So that's incredible. Yeah. I'm so sorry about that.
That's okay. And truly, look, I wouldn't wish that experience on anyone, but I genuinely, I view it as a blessing. Like I have more gratitude and appreciation for the little things in life. And I have more of a sense of kind of purpose than I ever have. And so, no, it hasn't been easy, but I don't regret it. I really don't. And I will also say, one of the amazing things about it is just how incredibly supportive people have been. And so it's just been a wonderful experience of, teaching you how much support we all do have and the goodness and kindness of people. So I don't.
It's just, again, it's to me, we use the term unimaginable. We've had probably, 10 rescues in our lives, not 10, maybe 8 rescues in our lives. So, we just lost a guy, during the pandemic. So, and he was a pity mix and, but got old, he was 16, 17. And, these dogs are just a huge part of our lives. And, and for that to happen again, I just keep saying, I'm sorry, because I'm so shocked.
It's okay. And it's okay.
So now I'm going to do what you would do to somebody who I think you probably coach and say, what have you learned from all this?
So, the biggest thing I learned is that people are really good and people are really kind. And I know that in this last year, the term doom scrolling was invented this year, right? Like it has been just like an incredibly negative news cycle. We're constantly bombarded by stories and images that just make us feel like the world is just going to hell in a handbasket and everything is falling apart. And the biggest thing I learned is that people will rally to support you when you go through hard things. They really will. But I will also say too, that a lot of the people that did the most for me, and I'm not exaggerating, are not my super old close friends that I've had for 20 years. It's my friends from the last 3 years that I met through LinkedIn.
Wow.
Like legit, there was a group of 5 women who they all took turns having groceries delivered to my house every week so that we didn't have, it's like, so that's the thing that we don't know, you don't really think about it when you're making friends on LinkedIn, whatever, but truly, those are the people that they just did. They pulled out all the stops and they made me feel loved and supported. And it was incredible.
Yeah, that is incredible. And that is a great lesson. And I know, we tend to have, negative thoughts about the people that we gather, right? We call them Facebook friends or LinkedIn connections or, and people can say, oh, you're friends on Facebook. But guess what? Some of my friends on Facebook are friends that I met through Facebook or I have a common interest with in a group or whatever. And they are really good friends. And I hear from them constantly and they call and they message and they do all that. And same goes for LinkedIn. And then I'll go back to our group again. In the what was it, 8 months that we've all been together and we've grown. I think you came a little bit later on.
I did.
It's just been incredible, and it is true. So I get it.
Group. And that if you were going through something really hard and you just let people in that group know, they would all rally to support you.
No, there's no two ways about it. Yeah. I am. So.
And I'd say the other really big thing that I've learned is we can go through way harder things than we think we can. We are far more resilient. So I had for like 15 years, I had a recurring nightmare that I was about to be attacked and I tried to scream and no sound came out. And let me tell you, when I was being attacked by a dog, like I fought for my life. I was vicious. I hit that dog over the head with a wine bottle 3 separate times. And when I couldn't get him off me, I screamed for help and I got help. And like this whole experience, I have come out on the other side with such a deep appreciation for my will to survive. And we often don't, in our day to day, we don't realize how strong and how capable we really are.
Yeah.
And we can do really, really hard things, and we can make it through really hard things.
Yeah. Well, and that certainly was an extremely hard thing. And I know in the short time that I've gotten to know you, I know you're going to invest that into other people, which
without a doubt.
So I want to jump in because time is flying by here, and I want to be respectful of your time. So let's talk about this first of all. This is your website.
Yeah.
And it's called BetterJones.com. And the first time I heard the name of the URL, I went, my brain. First question is, what do other Joneses feel about that name? But secondly, I thought, what a damn brilliant name for a website and a brand. So tell me, where did it come from?
So here's what I love. Everyone has their own interpretation of it. Okay. So some people think it's me being like, oh, I'm better than all the other Joneses. Some people are like, oh, it's a better version of like keeping up with the Joneses.
Mm-hmm.
Some people think it's, we say Jones, like I'm jonesing for a fix, like it's a better craving or a better yearning. What it really is, it's been my social media handle. It's been my Twitter handle for like a decade, and actually a decade. I think I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary, like in the next couple of weeks. And it's, I had gone through a really, really horrible breakup. And all my friends at the time were like, oh, you just have the worst luck with guys. And I remember saying to my friends, I was like, no, this cannot be luck, because then I don't have any control over fixing this. And I was like, no, this has to be me. And so I like went on this whole mission of sort of personal growth and personal development, and to become a better version of me, or a better Jones, because my last name is Jones, and people call me Jones quite a bit.
Okay, there you go.
So it is more of a self-deprecating thing than it is more me bragging about how awesome I am.
No, I see that, and I've actually thought about it from different angles, and that was one of the angles I certainly came up with. I mean, to me, first of all, as a brand person, it's just brilliant. It's just a great, it's a great great moniker for who you are, and it happens to be your name. So it's pretty cool.
And it's very in line with kind of what I do. Like, I'm a growth coach, and sometimes I do, growth coaching on kind of personal stuff and personal development. Mostly it's business and revenue and those kinds of things. But and I will always say, like, I'm never gonna help someone solve all the problems. I'm going to help them get to that next level, or those next like couple of levels. And so I'll help you be a better version of you. But and that's kind of been my mission, my personal mission for the last decade of my life.
Well, and you go somewhere too. I'll call it the A word. You use authority. Not you thought I was going to say asshole, but authority. You use the word authority, and I'll throw this up on the screen here for a second. It's one of the things you teach. It's one of the things you recommend. That the quickest way to be an authority is to talk like someone who has authority in the area that they're in. So tell me, while I'll leave this on the screen for a second with your voice underneath, what is it all about? What are we looking at right here?
Yeah. So yes, I'm a big believer in kind of building your authority. And I am a big believer that absolutely anybody can be and should be an expert. The key is that I don't care where you are in your journey, you're a few steps ahead of someone and probably a bunch of people. And so to them, you are an expert.
Yeah.
And so, in my experience, especially when you're in those sort of early stages of kind of going through this process, I think one of the absolute fastest ways that you can build your authority and become that kind of known expert in your industry is by doing what we're doing right now, right? Going on a lot of podcasts And that's what that program is all about, is teaching people how to pitch themselves to land podcast interviews. And then how do you use those interviews to build your authority, create strong, powerful relationships with kind of influencers in your niche or your industry, and grow your business.
Yeah, that's great. So I love threes, right? So I'm gonna ask you to give me threes. When you're telling people about being a better podcast guest or building authority through podcasts, and I'm not asking you to give in fact, I'm asking you to, attract people to your course.
Yeah.
Give me three things people need to think about to be a better guest, to build authority. Okay.
To be a better guest, first and foremost, it's what you and I have been talking about, and it's the work you're going through right now, Al. It's thinking through, what do you want to be known for? What are you really about? Like, not leaving it to chance. It's having some clear intention and having some clear motivation. And this is true whether it's being a podcast guest or whether it's building your personal brand or growing your business or whatever. I see people skip to the tactics and they forget to think about the strategy and the planning. And let me tell you, the tactics are a lot more successful if you actually do that kind of foundational strategy work and really know what the goal is and what you're working towards.
Okay.
So that's one. Two is, if we're talking about being straight up just being a better guest, you got to know who you're talking to. Okay. It's do a little bit of work to think through, what is this person all about? What are the things that they're going to kind of ask you? What do you potentially have in common? How can you make that connection? And right, like you and I, it's easier for us because we've been connecting in those Friday morning calls, and I have and we've been talking about the newspaper business and all these other things. Sometimes you go on these interviews and you've never talked to this person. And being able to show up and have a sense of kind of who they are and what they're about, it really helps you make that connection kind of much faster. And then I think in terms of being a better guest, and I don't know why, kind of this is sort of an afterthought always, but it's being present in the moment. So sometimes we're so quick to be thinking about the next thing we want to say or the next point we want to make that we don't really hear what the person is saying to us. And I think that goes both ways. I'm also a podcast host. That goes as a host too. Sometimes we ask a guest a question and they're answering, and we start thinking about what our next question is going to be. And we realize, like, we kind of didn't listen to the last.
I'm sorry. What did you say? I'm sorry.
And it's when you've got like a good rapport with something, that usually doesn't happen. But sometimes, man, it's just one of those days, and it does. And it's,
Well, I mean, I've been at this a long time, and it is hard to be present sometimes. And it is hard, and I'm not asking anybody to feel bad for me, but as you can see, all these buttons that are being pushed and the things that are happening, there's not a gnome here, the little joystick making it happen, But I think I caught the things that you said, which number one is, what do you want to be known for? There's a typo there. I'm going to fix it. What do you want to be known for? And have intention, really, really important. I think that is super important for people to know. So with that corrected, I'll put that up there. Number two, you said, who are you talking to? Basically do the homework, right? Understand who the person is, and next, to be present. And I think that's super important.
And I think one thing I just want to add, the big thing is, it's all about building a relationship. And it's the relationships in our lives and in our work that's where the real magic and that's where the real potential happens. And that's why I think podcast interviews are amazing, is you get to make very personal relationships with other thought leaders and influencers in your space. And so do what you can to make that connection real, because that's what's really going to kind of pay off both personally and professionally.
I'm going to hit you with something that I also think about podcasting.
Yeah.
That is listening. I think that makes for people who are thought leaders.
Yeah.
I think people who listen to podcasts, and I'm being a snob, are thought leaders. I'm being a snob because I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm sometimes amazed at what people don't necessarily know or soak themselves in. And something as silly as Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend, which to me is a brilliant study on self-effacing humor, to, the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal's daily podcast on what's going on in the news. I mean, all of those things are immersing you in something, and it's in a place where literally it's surrounding your brain.
Well, it's constant learning, right? And that's one of the things I said is like, thought leaders are people that are just constantly learning. There's that hunger to learn and evolve, and the people I know that who I just admire and respect, they are people that are always reading, always learning, are always teaching me something new. And it's exciting to be around.
There's a guru, leadership guru, author, pumps out a lot of books. His name is John C. Maxwell. Mm-hmm. And he says, every day I read, every day I write, every day I file. He still calls it file, but he means he sorts his notes. But every day I read, every day I write, every day I file. Meaning that to be a thought leader, how can I be an author? How can I be an expert? How can I share my knowledge if I don't commit to those things every single day? And I happen to agree that that's so true. In fact, I think a book you would like in particular of his, it's my favorite book of all this, and I've told him this, when I've had an opportunity to speak with him, is Thinking for a Change. It's a great book. It's not a genre book on quote unquote leadership. I'm going to be rude here as the host and look over my shoulder. I think it's up. No, it's right here. I was going to say, I think it's up on my nightstand, but it's actually right here on my shelf. And it's my most weathered Maxwell book. It's yellowed. It's got, bookmarkers and whatnot. It's been to the beach. It's been to the mountains. It's been everywhere because it's a great book. And one of the things he says is find a spot to think. Find some place to think. Even if you're in a 1-bedroom apartment with 5 kids, maybe it's sitting on the toilet seat with the door closed,
Probably.
and thinking, but what I'm saying? It's just, it's one of those challenges. So, So Kasey, I feel like we could talk for an hour. I want to be respectful of your time, and I also want to be respectful of your business. So I'm going to do this again. Go to Kasey's website. Resources are available here if you provide an email address. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, resources, there's a bunch of just kind of videos and things like that. You can also go to my YouTube channel, which is linked on the site. And
your YouTube channel is jam packed.
2 videos a week.
I'm blown away. In fact, for some reason, it was one of the things I didn't get to until late last night, and I was blown away. And of course, you shamed me into getting mine straightened out because.
Oh, okay. Then I'm going to send you some stuff after this.
Yes, please do.
Really helped me.
And I got spanked by YouTube this morning. I don't know if you heard me say that, but
no.
Yeah. I had a guy. I had two live streams set up for today. One, the guy early this morning.
YouTube that did that.
Yeah, YouTube. Well, I guess ended up everybody spanked me. But he thought we'd be okay. He appeared on James Corden's Late Late Show. And we showed his clip, and, and the walls came crashing down upon me. All fine, all good. Just slap on the wrist. Don't do that again. If you do it again, you're going to get in big trouble, kind of stuff. And and I wrote notes of apology. I want to make nice with those folks. I'm trying to figure out what we're doing here. But just a warning to everybody that live streaming that the bots are out there, and they're going to find you pretty quickly. So, but back to what I was saying about your YouTube channel. It's beautifully put together. Any information, that would be great. So I had this page up here for a second as I was yapping. So what do you want people to do here?
So join my free training, and I'll teach you kind of the 4 secrets that I have learned about what we refer to as the power of podcast interviews. And the big thing too is how these interviews can grow your business and kind of build your authority, and how they can help you reach your ideal customers, even if your ideal customers don't actually listen to podcasts.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah. Well, chances are someone who's close to your ideal customer listens to a podcast, and I think that's what's important.
And here's the other thing. No matter who your ideal customer is, they follow podcast hosts on social media.
Yeah.
And what do podcast hosts do? They promote their guests because they're promoting their show. And so all of a sudden they're going to see you in social, and all of a sudden, especially when you do a bunch of them, then your ideal customers are like, wait a second, that lady is suddenly everywhere. I clearly
Yeah. Well, I think we've also, because of the pandemic, I mean, the pandemic has two sides to it for podcasts. Yeah. One is I don't listen to as much as I usually am able to because I'm
commuting.
That drive from Portland to Pendleton, Oregon, totally. That's 4 or 5 podcasts right there, which, I can't consume that right now.
Yeah.
But the other thing that's happened, though, is it's become legit media because all the celebrities that entered into it, I mean, it blows me away who's got a podcast. I mean, one of my favorite ones is going back and watching all the Scrub episodes. It's called, Fake Doctors, Real Friends. It's JD and Turk.
Oh, really?
That's it's brilliant. It's really funny. It's really good. It's lighthearted. Another one is, three people who I like their work: Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes, who happen to be all, weirdly put together friends, but they do a great podcast called Smartless.
Oh my God, I love all of them. I mean, it's a
great podcast. So what I love about that is it's bringing podcast back into the mainstream and making
without a doubt.
Yeah, it's good. So I think what you're doing here on this workshop to put it up there again is really important because I think it's going to get bigger, not less.
I think so too.
Yeah,
I think so too.
Well, Kasey, I respect all of your time. What else do you want to tell folks before I let you go? This is your opportunity to just go ahead and let them have it.
Gosh, I don't know. You're capable of far more than you think you are, and you're stronger than you think you are. And I know that 2020 has been even if it's been a great year, it's been a really hard year for absolutely everyone. And you made it.
Yeah.
We've only got a couple weeks left and you threw this kind of dumpster fire of a year.
Yeah.
And that deserves to be celebrated. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm about to get vaccinated in the next week or two as a first responder. So,
whoa.
I'm
You're
excited about it. I am. I'm a firefighter and EMT here where I live.
Not know that. That's amazing.
Yeah. It's just one of those things I always wanted to do and got it done. And so I'm excited that I'm going to get the vaccine and be prepared, for not only having it and protecting myself, which, but I'll be able to get out there and not worry about where I am and who I can.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So, it's pretty incredible. So the beginning is here, and I'm excited about it. I have a lot of friends in the entertainment business. I'm really worried about a lot of them.
Yeah.
And so I'm really glad that when we get together as in conferences, which, you depend on, I'm sure, as a speaker and I do, and entertainment and theater and movies, right? Watching a movie with a theater full of people. It's going to be so great. So I can't wait for it to happen.
I know. It's going to be kind of weird. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it is going to be weird. It's going to be strange. We just had someone pop in here. Let me just see who we have before I let you go. There you go. Kate Grondin. My God.
Thank you, Kate. Oh,
well, I got to tell you, Kate has been a client of mine, and she is just a kick-ass businesswoman.
I love those.
Is in a business now, but who had her own business helping people in their latter years kind of get regrouped and to move to a new location. And what she does is just amazing. And she's a solid individual. So Kate, so good to hear from you. I sent you a LinkedIn message, by the way. Read that and give me a call. So there you go. Good. Anyway, Kasey, what a delight. I don't know if you're going to be around tomorrow for our group, but I hope you are. And
I absolutely will. I will see you tomorrow morning.
Good. Well, perfect. Stick around. I'm going to put you backstage. I want to say a proper goodbye, and I'm going to say goodbye to the folks there. Oh, Kate's so sweet. Just say goodbye to the folks here and tell them what's going on next week. All right. So putting you backstage. Thanks, Kasey. All right. Bye-bye. Well, folks, what an amazing and great guest. Kasey is really doing some fantastic work. I would recommend you go to her website. I'd recommend you look for her resources, and certainly recommend that you sign up for her information. So tomorrow is an off day. Not going to be here tomorrow. Monday, we are coming back with a gentleman who I think, no matter what your job is, but especially if you are a CEO, if you're a leader in your company, if you're a human resources person, in other words, if you're someone who might have to communicate something to the media, who might have to have it ready in your lapel, back pocket, your purse, your dash, your glove compartment, wherever it may be, date book, your phone. This gentleman is going to help you get that figured out. His name is Eric Cox. He is going to be here Monday talking about that. I've done this type of training. I know how important it is. Make sure you're here on Monday. Tuesday, I'm trying to plan something very special for everybody with some of my entertainment friends. May or may not work out. And then we're going to take some time off until the following week for the holidays. So I'll see you on Monday. Thank you for being here today. And I look forward to seeing you next time here on Al Getler Live. Thanks.